Hello students, welcome back to another chapter of history, chapter 9, the making of regional cultures. In this chapter we learn about the development of different languages spoken and used in the Indian subcontinent today. To understand the key factors that led to the emergence of the various regional cultures and to learn about the different forms of art, painting, music and dance forms that became popular during the medieval period. India is a land of diversity. Each region has its own distinctive language, clothes, food, dance, music, painting, and literature. These regional cultures evolve over a period of time and are often form a result of complex processes of intermixing of various traditions and ideas. Thus, some traditions appear specific to some regions, while some may be seen in the same region in different forms. Moreover, religious and secular texts of medieval India in the different languages reflect the customs, traditions, and cultures of the specific region where they were composed. These writings inform us about the cultural interactions, social activity, and trading patterns in a particular region. A number of languages developed in different parts of India during the medieval period. With the coming of the Muslim rulers to India, Arabic and Persian languages also came to the country. These languages influenced the development of some of the languages. The fusion of Persian and Hindi led to the development of Urdu, various regional languages such as Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Malayalam, Gujarati, and Bengali also developed. These languages were already in use before the arrival of the Turk and they continued to be used during the reigns of the Delhi Sultans and the Mughals. The Bhakti and Sufi movements also played an important role in the development of regional languages. They used these languages to spread their ideas and write their compositions. So it is quite common for us to identify a region with its language. Thus, we call a person Bengali or Marathi on the basis of the language which he speaks. Every region is identified with a certain distinct type of food, clothing, poetry, dance, painting, and music. Language is quite closely connected to a region. The Chera kingdom of Mahdapuram was established in the 9th century in the southwestern part of the peninsula, part of present day Kerala. The rulers introduced the Malayalam language and script in their inscriptions. The first literary works in Malayalam, dated to about the 12th century, are directly indebted to Sanskrit. This influence led to mixture of Sanskrit and Malayalam in a literary dialect called Manipravalam. A 14th century treatise on grammar and poetry composed in this dialect, Leela Tilakam, gives an idea of the quality of Manipravalam poetry. Many kinds of poems were composed in the Manipravalam style. Diamonds and chorals, referring to the two languages, Sanskrit and the regional language. Rulers and religious traditions, the Jagannath cult. In several regions, regional cultures developed around religious traditions. The local people made a wooden image of the deity, which originally a local god, came to be identified with Vishnu, and temple became a center of pilgrimage. The best example of this process is the cult of Jagannath at Puri, Odisha, literally Lord of the World, a name for Vishnu. In the 12th century, one of the most important rulers of the Ganga dynasty, Anantavarman, decided to erect a temple for Purushottama Jagannath at Puri. Subsequently, in 1230, King Ananga III dedicated his kingdom to the deity and proclaimed himself as the deputy of the god. As the temple gained in importance as a center of pilgrimage, so Mughals, Marathas, and the East India Company attempt to gain control over the temple. That's why its authority is social and political matters also increased. The Rajputs and traditions of heroism. In the 19th century, the Rajasthan of today was called Rajputana by the British. There are many groups who called themselves Rajputs in northern and central India. Prithviraj Chauhan was one such ruler. Rajput rulers cherished the ideal of the hero who fought valiantly, and stories about Rajput heroes were recorded in poems and songs. These preserved the memories of heroes and were expected to inspire others to follow their example. Ordinary people were also attracted by these stories, which often depicted dramatic situations and a range of strong emotions loyalty, friendship, love, valor, anger, etc. Women are also depicted as following their heroic husbands in both life and death. Women had been given a heroic image since they committed sati or self immolation. Different forms of dance and painting that became popular during the medieval period. During the medieval period, different regions of India came to be associated with a particular form of classical dance. Some dance forms like Kathak were also popular all over North India. Most classical dances were in some way or the other connected to performances in the temples or courts. All Indian classical dance forms depend almost entirely on Hindu mythology and legends for their thematic content. These forms of dance were a medium of expression of emotions, of narrating a story, and of drama. Although these dances could be performed solo or in a group. Six classical dance forms develop in Indian states. Bharatnatyam in Tamil Nadu, Kathakali in Kerala, Odissi in Orissa, Kuchipudi in Andhra Pradesh, Manipuri in Manipur, and Kathak in North India. Bharatnatyam is the oldest dance form of India. It evolved in South India, especially Tamil Nadu, and was primarily associated with temples. Since the 20th century, this dance form has been performed outside the temple and for the public on stage. Kathak is a dance form that is now associated with several parts of North India. The term Kathak is derived from the word Katha, which means story, a word used in Sanskrit and other languages for story. The Kathaks were originally storytellers attached to the temples who used gestures and songs in their performances. It was first mentioned in the Mahabharata. Gradually, by the 15th and 16th century, Kathak developed a distinct dance form. Under the Mughals, the dance form began to be performed in the court, where it acquired its present features such as intricate and rapid footwear and elaborate costumes. Two main gharanas, means traditions, of Kathak developed, namely the Jaipur gharana and the Lucknow gharana. Kathak grew into a major art from under the patronage of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, the last ruler of Awadh. The legends of Radhakrishna were enacted in folk plays known as Ras Leela. By the third quarter of the 19th century, it was firmly established as a dance form in the adjoining areas of present day Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh. So, the heroic traditions of various regions also help in the evolution of dance in several regions. One such dance was Kathak, which was evolved in northern India. The Kathaks initially were a caste of storytellers in North Indian temples. The legends of Radhakrishna were enacted in folk play known as Ras Leela. It interacted folk dance with the basic gestures of the Kathak storytellers. A distinct mode of dance in the 15th and 16th centuries with the spread of the Bhakti movement. Under the Mughal emperors and their nobles, Kathak was performed in the court. It developed in two traditions or gharanas, one in the courts of Rajasthan in Jaipur and the other in Lucknow. By the third quarter of the 19th century, it was firmly established as a dance form in the adjoining areas of present day Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, Bihar, and Madhya Pradesh. Next topic, painting for patrons. The traditions of miniatures. Before the Mughal school of painting was established, there was already an existing traditions of painting in India. The skill of Indian painters can be seen in the statues, murals, and caves like Ajanta. The miniature traditions of painting developed during the medieval period. Miniatures, as the name suggests, are small paintings composed in color on cloth or paper. The earliest miniatures were made on palm leaves or wood. Beautiful miniatures paintings were made in western India to illustrate Jain texts. Paper was introduced in India during the 13th century. This changed the face of art in India. Miniature painting flourished in India under the Mughals. Themes such as court scenes, hunting scenes, battle scenes, and various scenes of social life were shown. These were generally painted in bright and brilliant colors. Mewar, Kota, Kishangarh, Bundi, Bikaner, and Jodhpur are some important centers of the Rajasthani school of painting. Each of these schools had their own distinctive styles. Court scenes, portrait, nature scenes, poetry, and themes from mythology like the Radha Krishna story were commonly shown. Akbar, Jahangir, and Shah Jahan hired highly skilled painters to illustrate their manuscript in the Kitab Khana, containing their accounts and poetry. With the decline of the Mughal Empire, many painters moved out to the court of the emerging regional states. When Mughal Empire started declining, new artistic developed in the regional court of Deccan and Rajput rulers. One bold style of miniature painting was called Besoli. One of the most popular paintings of Himalayas region was Bhanudatta's Rasmanjari. Basoli and Kangra school of miniature paintings developed in the Himalayas from the 17th century. By the mid 18th century, the Kangra artists developed a style which breathed a new spirit into miniature painting. The source of inspiration was the Vaishnavite traditions, soft colors including cool blue and greens, and a lyrical treatment of themes distinguished a Kangra painting. Ordinary women and men painted as well on pots, walls, floors, cloth, works of art that have occasionally survived. So, during medieval period, one more traditions which deserve our attention in the miniature painting. Miniatures are small size paintings done in watercolor on cloth or paper. Akbar, Jahangir, and Shah Jahan hired highly skilled painters to illustrate their manuscript in the Kitab Khana, containing their accounts and poetry. When Mughal Empire started declining, new artistic developed in the regional court of Deccan and Rajput rulers. One bold style of miniature painting was called Besoli. One of the most popular paintings of Himalayas region was Bhanudatta's Rasmanjari. The Kangra artist by mid 18th century infused a new life into miniature painting. The growth of a regional language in Bengal. Regional language is the language which a person speaks in a region. It is generally assumed the Bengali language is spoken by people of Bengal. Bengali originated from Sanskrit but later on developed its own identity and literature. Bengal has a very rich cultural heritage. It was a major center of art and literature. Bengali language emerged as a result of the influence of Sanskrit on the local dialects that were spoken in Bengal. The Palas ruled over parts of Bengal between 8th century to 12th century. Between 14th century to 16th century, Bengal was ruled by sultans who were independent of the Delhi Sultanate. While Persian became the official language, Bengali continued to be used as the language of the people. Bengali was thus influenced by Persian, Sanskrit, and other European languages. Folk literature was transferred orally. It comprised of fairy tales, folk tales, and ballads. Bhakti saints like Chaitanya composed popular song in Bengali. The Sri Krishna Kirtan poems composed by Boru Chandidas. A Vaishnava saint was an influential work. The literature of the Vaishnava saint contributed greatly to the development of Bengali language and literature. There were compositions written about Chaitanya and his times by others. This gives us an idea about the society of that time. From the 4th to the 3rd centuries BCE, commercial ties began to develop between Bengal and Magad, which led to the growing influence of Sanskrit. During the 4th century, the Gupta rulers established political control over North Bengal and began to settle Brahmanas in this area. In the 17th century, the Chinese traveler John Jiang observed that languages related to Sanskrit were in use all over Bengal. In 1586, when Akbar conquered Bengal, it formed the nucleus of the Bengal Suba. During this period, Bengali developed as a regional language. In fact, by the 15th century, the Bengali group of dialects came to be united by a common literary language. Early Bengali literature may be divided into two categories: Sanskritic and Nath literature. Nath literature, such as the songs of Mainamati and Gopi Chandra, stories concerning the worship of Brahma Thakur, and fairy tales, folk tales, and ballads. Next topic: Peers and temples. From 16th century, people migrated in large numbers from less fertile western Bengal to the forested and marshy of southeastern Bengal. With Mughal control over Bengal, the capital shifted to Dhaka. Officials received land, grants, mosques were set up. The early settlers sought some order and assurance in the unstable conditions of the new settlements. The community leaders, called peers, were the source of order and stability for the early settlers. They included Sufi saints, soldiers, colonizer, Hindu and Buddhist deities and spirits. From the 15th century onwards, temple construction started on a large scale. Temples were built in Bengal by some individuals or groups to house the local deities and also to demonstrate their power and richness. Many of the small brick and terracotta temples in Bengal were built with the help of several low social groups like the Kolu. Kolu means oil pressures, and the Kansari. Kansari means bell metal workers. When local deities, once worshipped in thatched huts in villages, gained the recognition of the Brahmanas, their images began to be housed in temples. As the European trading companies introduced many new economic opportunities in Bengal, it improved the social and economic status of many families. So they proclaimed their status through the construction of temples. The important architectural features of the temples were the double roof means dochala and the four roof means chochala. Temples were usually built on a square platform with a relatively plain interior. Outer walls of many temples were decorated with paintings, ornamental tiles, or terracotta tablets. In some temples, particularly in Bishnupur in the Bankura district of West Bengal, such decorations reached a high degree of excellence. Next topic: fish as food. Bengalis had fish as food. Popularity of fish made even Bengali Brahmins eat fish. Fish and rice are available in plenty in the riverine plains of Bengal. Thus, this became the staple food item. Brahmanas were not allowed to eat non-vegetarian food, but the Brihadharma Puran, a 13th century Sanskrit text from Bengal, permitted the local Brahmanas to eat certain varieties of fish. Emergence of nation states in Europe. In Europe, literacy among the urban population increased in the medieval period. While most books were written in Latin, many writers started producing texts in regional languages such as English, French, and German. Books were handwritten and then copied by scribes using quills or reed pens to write on animal skin parchments. Some books were also illustrated and painted in gold and bright colors. By the early 19th century, a Romanian school textbooks began to be written in Romanian rather than in Greek. And a Hungarian was adopted as the official language instead of Latin. This feeling was strengthened by the movements for Italian and German unification in the late 19th century. I would like to advise you watch the video clip at least twice. And after watching the video,